one of the and I guess this is something that I'm curious about, and something that I've always said. Like I said, we don't know all of the answers, but do you see a situation where right now, obviously, there's a lot of talk? We had Arkansas this past year. We have several states. We have over a dozen states now that are going to have 50-50 legislation. Do you see a world, in my mind, this collaborative process has a place pre-litigation no matter what? What do you see the optimal family court system, even for high conflict, be?
Well, right now in North Carolina, there's mandatory mediation for custody. So if you file a custody action, you absolutely have to go to mediation. Is it like that in California?
Yes, yeah. There's mandatory mediation. It's a joke, but there's mandatory mediation for any request for order.
So that is mandatory. For collaborative, I absolutely think that it's going to become, the thing that people select because it allows them to stay outside of court. But they don't have to go through the full collaborative process. And please note, the collaborative process has varying different options. So some people think it's this whole process where you have to have a child specialist and a financial neutral and 2 attorneys. You have to hire all these people. You don't have to do that. The simplified collaborative process is just the 2 attorneys and the 2 clients sitting in a room together. And that could also be on a Zoom conference. We were doing Zoom way before Zoom was a thing, by the way, in collaborative. So the thing that I will say about collaborative is that it is evolved. It is evolved divorce. The whole reason everybody sits in a room together is to avoid the telephone game. So we can just have direct conversations, get to the point, make some decisions, get an agreement done, and get over it. Move on. I know that there are a ton of emotions involved. I am divorced myself. I am a child of divorce. I fully understand that it is very intense, but all that work needs to be done at home and in the mirror. That's where that work needs to be done. This is a business transaction. You need to get through this so that you can take care of yourself mentally and emotionally, so that you can take care of your children mentally and emotionally. And if you're in the middle of this for an extended amount of time, your brain is going to start to cycle. It's part of the chemistry of how our brain is made up in dealing with conflict. This is not anything bad about any individual person. This is just human nature and how best to deal with conflict. And so now that people are starting to become more aware of conflict resolution possibilities outside of litigation, they're going to start naturally selecting that. They already are, because they see, okay, I have more control of this process. It's going to cost me less money. I'm going to be able to get through this faster. At the end of the day, yes, it does mean that it has to be voluntary on both sides. Are we there right now? No. I would say about half of the people have woken up. Well, that means there's this whole other half of people who have not. Is that going to continue to change over time? Yes. Is it going to happen right now? No, it's not. It's a pendulum. It has to swing. Right now, it went all the way, and it's got to come all the way back, and that's just kind of where we're at. I'd say that over the last 10 years, I've been doing this. I opened my law firm straight out of law school a decade ago, and the first one. And so I've been doing this for 10 years. And since I have been doing this, every single year, the ratio of collaborative cases to litigation cases across all my firms, I only do collaborative, goes up. That is amazing.
And so I think this is probably a question a lot of people have. And if you go down in many states, I went and looked. I don't know the exact number. Like I said, California, I had no idea, has very similar language. It's kind of hidden away. It's not readily available, but very similar language around laws dealing with collaborative divorce. How long would you say the average case, like what is that? So you mentioned, you said they come in and they may do it together. They may do it separate. Kind of the bare bones is each side has an attorney. You sign an agreement. Everything's in the container. Everything that's said in that room, in that Zoom, whatever is there and there forever and never comes out. So how long does the collaborative process usually take?
4 to 6 months.
4 to 6 months. So
to be done with everything: custody, child support, equitable distribution, alimony, literally the whole entire thing. In North Carolina, you have to be separated for a year to get divorced. So I'm not talking about the actual vital records formality of a divorce. I'm talking about anything involved in a marriage can be 100% resolved. Generally, on average, the cases take 4 to 6 months. And the 4 to 6 months really is only because of the scheduling of the client's schedules, not because it couldn't have happened faster. I mean, I think that I've always, there's the thing called divorce hotel. I don't know if you've heard about it, but I truly believe that if I just opened up, went to a hotel for a weekend and had a bunch of different attorneys, collaborative attorneys, and a bunch of different spouses all staying there, we could finalize everything for them in 2 days, a Saturday and a Sunday. I truly believe that we could spend.
They could have a piece of paper that lays everything out
Yes.
that's ready to be submitted to the courts
Yes.
in that short time. And in a lot of states, in California, I mean, it's 4 to 5 months before you get an initial hearing.
Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing. So,
and part of that is the discovery process, is immediate. When you have your first session, everybody hands over all the documents, or before that, we've had a Dropbox opened up where all the documents are put in and everybody gets that. So then you have a binder or you have a Google Drive folder that has everything for this. You're about to start your life over again. Isn't it awesome to have everything that you have had in one place, and then you're able to kind of figure out what you need to do in order to organize your life forward? That's another thing about collaborative. We do budgets, we have spreadsheets, everything's on the computer. Everyone can see exactly what's fair, what's 50-50. If we move this here, what does that do to the ratio? Everything's just open and it's very transparent, and it allows people to feel comfortable. Even though it's a very uncomfortable situation, the transparency allows for comfort.
Yeah, no one feels like the other party's trying to pull a fast one on them.
Exactly. Because there's no reason to, right? The attorneys don't make any more money if it goes on. We don't make money off of there being high levels of conflict in this situation. Also, we're sitting in the room with them, so we want to help them through conflict. It's not comfortable to just sit swimming in conflict with two people who absolutely despise each other for 2 hours. That's what we commit ourselves to do. Yeah, I don't think most people, knowing what they and their spouse get into, would want to electively go into someone else's relationship and just enjoy that with them for 2 hours.
Yeah, that I'm sure it's fulfilling when the challenging cases come and you come to a resolution. But in the moment, it's probably
sometimes we all cry because we've been through so much. We're just like, yes, it is over.
Yeah.
But they do all come to resolution. I want that to be noted. Some people are afraid. They're like, well, then if it ends and then I have to go hire a litigation attorney, that almost does not happen. There are few cases that do not settle. I personally do not have one case where the two people did not eventually reach a resolution. So it is slim that actually happens. Does it happen? Yes. I cannot guarantee you, and I don't guarantee anything, but I cannot guarantee you that if you go to collaborative, you are 100% going to settle your collaborative case. I will say that it is way more likely than not that you are going to settle your case there. And I think that, everybody should truly just look into it, make sure that you know what you're doing. Just make an informed decision. You should be playing a chess game. You should be sitting upright. You should be looking down at the board. You should be thinking about the other person and what they're doing and what you're doing to advance your next move 3 moves ahead. That's what you should be doing. You need a 20,000-foot view. You do not need to be hugging the tree, staring at the ants on the tree. Do not do that. Back up.
Mm-hmm. And with such a high success rate, do you typically see people? It's like, hey, we want to have some form of shared parenting, maybe not agreeable on 50-50 and it's like, hey, we're going to just divide the assets in half. Like, is that the typical? What percentage would you say come in like high conflict where they see nothing the same way?
I'd say almost all. I mean, lots of parents come in wanting more than half time. I think just as a parent, don't you just naturally want to have your children more? I think almost all the time I have someone come in and say, I think I'd like to have primary custody. And I'm like, let's talk about what that means for your child down the road. Let's look at statistics. Why don't you do your research? Just read these articles, look at this psychology stuff, chat with your own therapist. I'm not the end all be all of information. In fact, I'm just a conduit of a bunch of research that's really obvious. Like, I don't even have to be like, hey, please listen to me. All I have to do is say, please read these bukus of articles and research that we just now have. I don't want anybody to feel bad. We just now started figuring all this out. We just now have enough information to figure out what's happening in family court, what's happening to kids, what's happening to adults. We just now have this stuff. So it's just natural that now would be the time that we're figuring out how to change this.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, and we talked about it briefly about one of my initial conversations with Don, who's the executive director of National Parents Organization, who said in the late '90s, early 2000s, shared parenting was this extreme concept. And I think in my practice on the day to day, it's individuals who usually cause the biggest issues are the parents, the grandparents who aren't open to reading that type of literature.
Right. But I think over time, I mean, this is kind of like there are lots of things when you're a parent that become almost like kind of a guilt trip if you don't do it right. Like there are lots of trends that happen in every generation of parenting. I do believe eventually there's going to be enough information out there that parents are going to naturally not want to be exposing their children or themselves to that.